Teachers of Reddit, what are you? The parent is just as bad as the student stories? Elementary teacher here. We had a student who wouldn't stop stealing things out of other kids' backpacks. We had caught him on camera and would call the parents and they would just say no. That's his insert stolen item. We just bought it for him. Then, we get him on a positive behavior plan and create intentional lessons about empathy to others, setting goals to get what you want, the difference between wants, needs, etc. Eventually, he gets enough positive days in a row that he gets released from the behavior plan and receives a free bike as his incentive for good behavior. They were donated to the school by a local bike shop. The next day he tells me his uncle stole it and pawned it. He went right back to his old behaviors and it was heartbreaking. I had a student last year who was new to the school. Really nice, friendly, shy and hilariously absent-minded. He would come to school at least 2 days a week with either his shirt on backwards, inside out or both. So I wanted to talk to his parents about how his absent-mindedness was affecting his learning. Mom shows up at 5. Dad shows up 1 hour late. We have a good chat and they get up to go. As I'm walking them out I said I will show you the shortest way to the parking lot. The dad replies with I didn't park in the parking lot so I said you can go the same way to the street. He said I couldn't find the parking entrance so I just drove around and parked on asphalt play area. Sure enough I walk by and his car is next to the playground. So it all came together after that. Sounds like a real case of the Kevins. I had a preschooler call his mother and butthole. This would be upsetting except the day before. She called him and butthole. She said it quiet enough that other children or people wouldn't hear. But my co-worker swore she heard her say it. We have our scheduled conference and she doesn't understand why he says such nasty things to her. She doesn't understand why he says such nasty things to her. She pretends not to if she mutters the same type of crap to him under her breath. It's fairly obvious that the child is learning stuff from you when you see them learning stuff from you. Teaching adjacent. I used to be an educational facilitator at a science center. During the school year I would be the liaison for school trips. During the summer, I would run the summer camps. Parents used to like to plunk their kids in science camp because it is educational. We had a pile of hands-on programming. I have to say, it was pretty fun. Fun unless your kid aggressively hates science and you are forcing them to be there. Enter Jason. Jason was a crap on day 1. We welcomed them to camp by making liquid nitrogen ice cream. Jason didn't give a crap. He refused to eat stupid nerd ice cream. Through the day his attitude got worse. He refused to participate, called the other kids nerds and losers. He was an all-around pain in the butt. At pickup, I pulled his mother aside and said I don't think Jason really wants to be here. We can arrange for a refund or see if we can transfer him to another program he will find more to his liking. Double quote. His mother replied it's your job to make him want to be here. Clearly you suck at it. Great. Day 2. Jason shows up with an even bigger chip on his shoulder. The day's activity was engineering. Fort building. Every kid loves a good fort, except Jason. Jason picked up one of the plastic tubes and cracked a kid across the back of the leg with it. As I run over to tend to his victim, Jason cracks me across the side of the head with the tube with all his might, breaking my glasses and giving me a decent bruise across the side of the face. It takes 2 of us to disarm Jason and separate him from the group. We pull him into the admin office and call his parents to come now. He is no longer welcome. His mother shows up a good 3 hours later, absolutely livid. Not about Jason's behavior, not in the least. There was no apology or understanding. Instead, as we ejected her son from camp, she turned to us and said, I hope you all get cancer. I once had a student who thought I should drop whatever I was doing and help him immediately anytime he asked a question. One time, I was working with another student and this kid yells across the room that he needed help. I told him I would help him when I was done and to please raise his hand next time. Apparently, this set the kid off because he went on a loud tirade about how I was racist for not helping him. Never mind the fact that the student I was helping, who he wanted me to abandon, was the same color as him. I ended up kicking him out of class after he went on and on about it for a while, which he said only confirmed my racism. Everyone else in the room just kind of stared at him as he left. He got suspended from my class for a couple days, which meant I needed to inform his family. I never actually spoke to his mother, because his aunt was listed as a contact about any incidents. Turns out he and his mother were living with the aunt at the time, but the aunt explained to me that he had learned this behavior from his mother, who demonstrated this behavior anytime she felt she was wronged. The aunt said she was trying to fix her nephew's attitude and promised me that it didn't matter if her sister thought it was fine to teach her son to act that way, because it wasn't going to happen again while they lived in her house. And you know, she was successful. The kid never pulled that crap again, at least not in my classroom. It's really refreshing to read about a troubled student getting support they actually need. This one's sad. I was a camp counselor and I had a girl in my cabin with issues. She was attention seeking, kind of a mean girl, and generally wasn't liked by a lot of the camp. I honestly didn't give her a lot of one-on-one attention, which is something I deeply regret in retrospect. I only understood the issue because I was bus staff. This was a sleepover camp. Her session was 2 weeks and her parents had elected for her to take the bus back and they'd pick her up. The bus was early but plenty of parents showed up early. They were so excited to see their kids. As we got closer to pickup time, the crowd dwindled until there were just a few left. A staff member asked for the kids still there so they could make phone calls. All but one were in traffic and on their way. My camper's parents said no. They said they had 2 more days of freedom. They wouldn't take her, and said we needed to put up with her for a couple more days. They each said this individually and hung up. Neither responded to follow-up calls. Staff told me to go home and they were left to figure that one out. My parents always hated me, but this was shocking to me, that someone's parents would absolutely refuse to let their 12-year-old into their house. I really hope someone called the police or CPS. A bit different because this is a positive story. I'm not a teacher but I TA'd for a freshman chemistry class last year. So college kids but ones that were in high school like 3 or 4 months previously. One kid in my section was amazing, scary smart, always got great marks on assignments, asked fantastically phrased questions that the professor loved to answer, was a joy to be around during the lab section because he was so easy to be friendly with. He clearly loved and excelled at the work and enjoyed being in the environment, which definitely extended to the rest of his lab group. They were consistently the most talkative but also got the highest marks on assignments. About halfway through the semester we introduced a concept that he struggled with a bit, so he came to a few tutoring sessions and he was a joy to help one-on-one. Our third tutoring session was in the campus Starbucks and went late, so he had to get his dad to pick him up because his ride to campus that day had already left. His dad came a bit early, so he ordered a drink and sat down with us for a bit, and I immediately understood where this kid got everything from. His dad was wicked smart, asked relevant questions in a way that made me think about the material in serious depth, same way that his son did, cracked a couple of dad jokes that made me laugh, and was beyond easy to talk to the point where we had stayed an extra 30 minutes beyond what we were supposed to, swapping between going over the material and cutting up. Just a joy to be around from day one until the day of the final, and the apple clearly didn't fall far from the tree. I had a student many years ago, call him M. He was a sweetheart in the classroom, never answered back, did as he was told, engaged and interesting, but outside of class, he wasn't allowed to be around other students, escorted class to class, because he would start to fight every time, and I mean that. I could not wrap my head around it, until parents' evening. His dad was a hulk of a man, mother was sadly deceased. He was clearly abusive. He kept his hand on the back of M's neck, leading him around like that. M looked like he was going to his own execution. Was told later that authorities were involved, but M lashes out all the time because it was the only time he felt he had some control. Would never talk back to an adult because he was just crap scared of us all. He didn't make it the year before he disappeared, but I still think about him. The mother who was screaming in the office, "I'm gonna hit you in your freaking face," because a tutor dared to say the kid was having behavior issues during free tutoring. Now I know why the 5 of your 11 kids in our school are terrible hot messes. Poor things don't have much of a change. Mum was banned from the building because this was the last straw. I got a phone call from a parent basically saying that a few other children had beaten up their child, so the following day we take aside that child, then all the other children. In the end turns out there were 9 other children involved, and it turns out to be the complete truth. The children had been arguing about a video game. They're 10, and this one child had a different opinion to the others, so they push him to the ground, and while he's curled up on the floor, they start kicking him. My head teacher contacts the parents of the children involved to let them know and explain the punishment. Fast forward to the next day when one of the parents comes into school and starts shouting at their child in front of his whole class and teacher, asking him why the heck he admitted to doing it, what was the matter with him and how he was stupid for doing so, before taking him and his 2 siblings out of the school. This child was one of the ones who admitted straight away to doing it and had burst straight into tears and was clearly feeling guilty. Poor kid, born with a conscience to a role model without one. When I was still a student teacher, I was asked by my cooperating teacher to sit in on parent-teacher interviews. The first parent scheduled for that night was the parent of a student who was completely tuned out in my class, usually always sleeping, never does any work, never did well on tests or assignments, the usual suspects. The student was also often caught on his phone in class watching streams on Twitch with the volume on and complaining when his phone would get confiscated. My cooperating teacher tells this parent all of our concerns in the nicest and most polite way possible, going as far as beginning to suggest homework management solutions, study tips, and even formulate a plan of action for the student so that his grades could improve come next term. Now, if I asked you to go and look up the definition of disconnected in the dictionary, you would find a picture of this woman. Everything my cooperating teacher said, all her concerns, her suggestions, her plans of action for this student, went in one ear and straight out the other. When the teacher finished voicing her concerned suggestions, I kid you not, this woman blinks. Like one of those I have no idea what you just said kind of blinks, pauses for about 5 whole seconds, then replies with, "How many students are in this class?" My eyes immediately bulged out of my head at that response. This wasn't a classroom size problem. This was a your child puts in zero effort problem. Still, the teacher politely replies with 26, relatively small for a school of more than 1,700 students. The woman stood up from her seat so violently that the teacher flinched and proceeded to storm out of the room mumbling, "Too many. Class is too big. Too many kids. Too many." My cooperating teacher and I were both speechless. It turns out that she went straight to the principal's office right after the interview and began to complain to her about the class size and how it was hurting her son's education. When the principal said that there wasn't much she could do about the situation, the parent began to complain about how I, the student teacher, obviously didn't know what I was doing for her kid to be failing, and that the student teacher should teach the class alone. Thankfully the principal backed me up, but I still couldn't believe what an airhead this parent was. TLDR, student puts in zero effort, but to the parent it's the class size's fault and also my fault. I had a student who repeatedly lied about assignments, saying he'd turned them in and his teachers had lost them. As a team with admin present, we conferenced with mom and dad, who deflected and provided excuses that he just doesn't like school, and if my son says he did something, he did it. We value integrity in our family. 3 months later some friends of mine invited me to a bar a few towns away to see a band perform. Near the end of the night, I ran into the mom who is out on a date with a man who isn't her husband. From that point on, she wouldn't return any of my emails or calls about the son's behavior. She is now an administrator in another county. Mrs., I see that you value your integrity. Now I wonder what will happen if I sent this photo of you with gentleman to your husband. I am sure that he will be happy with your actions. Early in my career I was the poor sap that got roped into doing home visits to work with parents that couldn't meet in school. 6th grade child with extreme behavioral disturbances would make moaning sounds in class to upset other students. Told one of my colleagues he'd slap the black out of her. I pull up to the apartment complex and start looking for the right unit. I'm suddenly distracted by very obscene, very loud moaning above me. Child's mother and not the father were very naked, getting physically intimate out on their deck, standing to the open rest of the apartment complex. Dad was listed to live at that same address. I decide I want absolutely nothing to do with the situation. And as I'm putting in reverse, A utility truck flies in behind me and parks across 2 spaces. Guy gets out and yells up at the woman. "B, I told you I'd beat the N at $% if you didn't stop frickin'." Starts throwing screwdrivers and wrenches up at them. I noped out of there so fricking fast. Afterwards I had much more empathy for the kid. He grew up in an atmosphere so unbelievably fricked I had never conceived it could actually exist. Obligatory, not a teacher, but I worked as a camp counselor. We had an 8-year-old who managed to crap his pants about 4 times in 2 months. We told the mother, who just waved it off saying that he was just too lazy to go to the bathroom and that he always did that. Regular 8-year-olds do not routinely crap their pants, but okay Karen. That can be a sign of molestation. A student got into a fight. That student called her mom, and the mom showed up with younger siblings. The mom got physical with administration. One of the younger siblings was talking crap as that happened. Who the heck cares that their child got into a fight at school, and then thinks, oh, let's get the whole family involved and doesn't freaking blink an eye. I teach elementary music, but I also assist in before school care. There was one boy, 3rd grade, who was sitting at a table with several other students. One girl was attempting to engage with the boy and he abruptly stands up, points at the girl, and screams, "You are the devil." Obviously at this age there needs to be intervention because you can't talk to other in that fashion or with that language. We always try and talk through emotions rather than explode. Call the mom and explain the situation. The mom's first and only response is, well, if he called her the devil, she probably is the devil. Pretty clearly can tell where that behavior comes from. That boy grew up to be a water boy. Not a teacher but a parent. My son asked if a friend could come over for a sleepover. No big deal. The name he gave was a friend of his I liked and a good kid. Come the night, it's a different kid with the same name. Kid's mom, whom I had never met, just says, "Are we doing this or what?" But frick it, I had already committed and the kids seemed thrilled about it. This was back when the Pokemon card game was huge with the school kids and they stayed up late playing and having a blast. Although the other kid was a poor loser and argued a lot. In the morning the mom picks the kid up and pretty much acted like it was a huge imposition for her to have to pick him up at all. Later that day, my son is going his binder of Pokemon cards and finds his shiny Charizard is missing. Which, if you know the game, was pretty rare and the pride of his collection. I called the mom and asked if, by chance, it had gotten mixed up with her son's cards. She flipped out, cursed like a sailor and threatened to call the cops on me for falsely accusing her son. TLDR. Kid steals my son's shiny Charizard card and his mom threatens to call the cops on me. That little crap. You do not steal someone else's Pokemon card, no matter what it is. Weedle or shiny Charizard. That's like taboo. Not me, but a friend of mine is a professor at a Christian college. They had a student who wanted to do a topic about how being gay is a sinful choice and the only source they listed was their dad. When the teacher said that their assignment needs to be something that has academic backing, the student responded by claiming that their dad is an expert on the choice of gayness. You know, when you think about this, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not a teacher, but when I was in high school my form tutor was ranting about one child's mum. It was the final year and exams were approaching. This one lad would come to school but sleep the entire day and never do any work. Like literally none, and would often fall asleep. He was asked why he was so tired and obviously the kid just replied, "Dunno." After some digging they found out his routine was home from school, 2 hours nap, play Call of Duty all through the night and then have a bath before coming to school. His mum was called in and told what was going on and that her son was going to fail everything. Her response? "Well, what do you want me to do about it?" in a tone that suggested, "Well, you're the teacher so it's not my problem." Poor lad slept through the handful of exams he turned up to. I was a French teacher. Kid was in level 1 French. Clearly he put his assignment through a translator. I confronted him. He admitted it. So I gave him a 0F. His family lost their minds. They claimed I was calling him stupid. Long story short, principal let him redo the assignment. Too bad the principal didn't back you up. Definitely not a teacher, but this is relevant. I swear, after I graduated high school I heard that one of the best teacher I ever had ended up quitting. He was absolutely fantastic and just a very genuine human being. Everyone loved him even if they hated the class. Well, The class behind me absolutely broke him. I remember being a senior and watching the man become a hollow shell. At the end of that year, he ended up failing a girl because she never did her work, never tried, just kind of fricked off even with extensions and help, and constantly gave him crap. When the mom came to talk to him, she went off, accused him being prejudiced, doing it because he just didn't like her daughter. Blah, blah, blah. She ends up suing both him and the school and he quits. You have been visited by the Holy Fruit Boy. If you comment Tiny Turtle, he will bless you with unlimited holy fruits. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.